I'm Molly Arthur, a Society of the Sacred Heart associate in San Francisco. And I welcome you all once again within the living reality of being the heart of Jesus in the world. Heart lovers, that came to me in the beginning of this. So, this has been for me a moving and heart opening series of encounters. I have so enjoyed being with Mary on this journey. What a privilege. I'm still working to grasp the implications of the book for my own vocation to the Sacred Heart charism. I know it has expanded me, my mind and my heart and my identity, and in particular, my relationship with Mother Earth and our Creator and all creation. So my deep gratitude to Mary and to you, heart lovers. Blessings on this, our last time together. May more time arise to contemplate and share with each other and bring in others as well.
Hey, lean to hear my feeble voice. At the center of the sacred hoop, you have said that I should make the tree to bloom. With tears running, O great spirit, my grandfather, with running eyes, I must say, the tree has never bloomed. Here I stand, and the tree is withered. Again, I recall the great vision you gave me. It may be that some little root of the sacred tree still lives. Nourish it then, that it may leaf and bloom and fill with singing birds. Hear me, that the people may once again find the good road and the shielding tree. Today, in this last session, we're going to have, well, we're not having an interviewer. It's just me. And I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes about the third part 3 of the book, which is entitled Revisioning, and is chapters 9 and 10. And then we'll have an opportunity for questions or comments. And then I'm going to give an overview of the whole book, which of course will be repeating things that those of you who made it through all of the sessions have already heard. But it's a way of then coming to a conclusion with an all group where you can reflect on, what it all means for you, what it all comes out to for you. So this is on the first section here is on part 3, and the prayer, I chose that prayer of Black Elk because if you've read part 3, there is a certain somberness to it, the facing reality that we are in a difficult, traumatic in time, I mean, time of terrible suffering in so many parts of the world, of breakdown, of trauma on levels that are very extreme, and a real time when humanity is facing sort of the ultimate choice of whether to continue living or not. And so the challenge of this time and the challenge that I felt as I was writing the book is that, how do you walk that line between horror and hope? How do you find hope without denying the somberness and even the horror that we see so frequently? And how do you do that? In this part 3, I talked about the pessimism of what's called post-humanism, which is a philosophy that basically says that humans really have no power in the world, and that we're pretty much finished. I mean, generally the post-humanist perspective is that we're on our way out. Or that's the most pessimistic. The opposite would be the over optimism of, oh yeah, we can fix it. We can, and sometimes that's what's called eco-modernism, that we'll find this technological fix and then everything's just going to keep getting better. And both of those are problematic. So how do we walk that line of finding hope in the midst of the reality that things are bad and they're going to get worse probably? I mean, on this day when the hurricane is about to hit, another hurricane is about to hit Florida, and some people are going to be experiencing that devastation. And while bombs are dropping in Lebanon and Gaza and Ukraine and so on. So what enables us to get through um, terrible times? What enables people to get through trauma? What enables resilience? I mean, that's the word that is often used of people as well as of landscapes. Um, Resilience is the capacity to experience shocks and brokenness, and yet to continue on and in some way to come back from that. And what the as far as with people, what the psychologists say is that it is being accompanied, and I would put the word heart accompaniment on that, is the fundamental thing that enables resilience. So children who grow up with that, with experiencing heart accompaniment, later on, if they experience trauma, they will still have more resilience than children who never had that. And anyone at any time in life, when one experiences it, something that just tears one's world apart and shatters one's sense of safety and self, the most important treatment, if you want to put it that way, is to have people there who accompany you. And so that's the pierced heart of Jesus is very much an image of both what's wrong in the world, that it is pierced, that it is being pierced, and that these terrible things, these devastating things, these are happening, these things that should never happen are happening. So that's one side of the pierced heart. The other dimension of it is the accompaniment, that he is accompanying us and accompanying the world, and being that presence of love in the midst of that horror. So it's a powerful symbol, as we all know. One of the things that it teaches us is not to deny our need to mourn, not to deny the reality of brokenness and the pain of brokenness that we experience. That we have to feel it often in order to get through it. And if we deny it or try to cover it over or run away from it, that it just stays there. It doesn't go away. So we accompanied by the pierced heart of Jesus. So accompaniment is the key to resilience, and of course accompaniment has various dimensions. So we're talking about human accompaniment. We're also talking about divine accompaniment, and also in the context of this book, we're talking about what I call more than human accompaniment. And more than human, as I think I've mentioned before, is a term that's being used to talk about the participation of many species and many dimensions of the created world in our lives. That rather than saying other than human, that puts it, we're here and everything else is over there. But it's simply that it's the more than human that is all around us and that we participate in and participates in us. That we need the accompaniment also of the more than human. And we've been talking about that in other times too, of the how healing it is for people to spend time in wild places, or even slightly wild places like a garden or a park, and to really develop relationships with creatures, the animals, the plants, the soil, the water, and the landscape. So that accompaniment of the more than human is also a part of the key to resilience. And the resilience of those landscapes is desperately needs our accompaniment. One of the examples I gave of a way forward is participation in ecological restoration, which is a very gratifying activity, and it is an accompaniment of the land as it is permitted to heal itself into a more healthy ecosystem. So anyway, that the question of hope, that hope is not an escape from all the awful things that can happen. And hope is not the same as optimism, because optimism often is the sort of belief that the thing I want to have happen will happen. Whereas hope is a conviction that it's basically the conviction that there is a heart at the heart of the world, even when I can't see it, and even when I can't feel it. But to really believe that to believe that there is goodness, and that I can participate in that, and I can choose to participate in that, even though it's not evident. And I gave the example that from one of my former students who was in a prison camp and yet discovered that he could choose a way of being that was attentive to the gifts of life rather than to the abuse that he was experiencing, and he was still experiencing the abuse. So then Doug Christie calls that practicing paradise, and he draws that out of his work on the desert traditions, the desert fathers and mothers, that paradise is not is not past, a lost past, nor is it a future heaven far away. Paradise is right here when we become awake to the gift of God in everything and the life of God in everything. But we have to practice that. And sometimes it comes as a sheer gift when that breakthrough of the glory or of the joy or the ecstasy. But many times it isn't coming like that, and so we practice the way of being that, and he emphasizes a lot that way of being is one of he called it purposelessness, and that might sound strange, but purposes are he was sort of saying purposes are of the ego, that it's my purpose to achieve such and such, and to let go of that, and the simple being, and being in a relationship. And again, in the context of this book, particularly in relationship to all the creatures around us, and to emphasize that it doesn't mean only in beautiful places, but wherever one is, to practice paradise. A lot easier said than done, but I think it's a beautiful idea and a beautiful aspiration of the recognition of the giftedness that it is available to us. So that's what I was going to say about the part 3. Again, calling it revisioning because we need a new vision, and we Marguerite Marie Alacoque, who is often pointed to in terms of the devotion to the Sacred Heart, she had visions. I mean, she had the full-fledged version of visions. But here we're talking about vision in the broader sense of the term, of a new expansive way of seeing the world that that can get us through this crisis time, us meaning humanity, not just us as individuals, but also more broadly humanity, can get us through this time to a different way of being.
I've always had, I've mentioned to you once before, the comparison or the difference between the mystics, as you mentioned with the visions, and us really trying to use our imagination and trying to better grasp an awakening moment. And what do you think makes the difference between a mystical experience? Do you think that they're more closely conscious about divine, and that's an invitation? Sorry, just a quick answer
Well,
to
I
that.
mean, the word, yeah, not just a small question.
Right.
The, mysticism is a mysterious subject, um, but Karl Rahner says that the difference between the people we call mystics and the rest of us, that there is a psychological difference, is basically what he says, is
Oh,
that
wow.
well, what he's trying to say is that it's like an openness, I guess you might say,
Okay.
a openness to a far greater depth of reality and of God.
Okay.
That where and the rest of us, we may get that in little hints, that we have moments of a certain degree of openness, but not that like sort of radical um, flash of it. I mean, the other piece, and I dealt with this a little bit in the book, is the whole the much longer tradition of shamans. And I mean,
Mm.
shaman seems like a totally non-Christian word, but that just like everything else, that's being questioned as to whether maybe we shouldn't say that we have mystics, so those people had shamans.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something similar going on in the sense of the shamans were people um, in the indigenous communities
Mm.
whose role and whose gift was to be in touch with the deeper dimensions, the deeper forces, and to guide their people.
Hmm.
Uh, and So, maybe the mystics, in some sense, there's a similarity. But yeah, I mean, this is a gigantic topic.
We could get into grace, and then we could get Dave involved in that. But yeah, so just to leave a little open-endedness to it all. Yeah, Mary, then you could go into the overview summary that you,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So you want to do the spotlight again then, or
Oh,
maybe you'll,
yes,
yeah.
I can do that. Yes. No, I think you're still in it.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
All right. Well, then I was going to do this overview of the whole book, um, or to put it another way, to kind of lift up the key themes, and that's to lead into the small group time, when the question is going to be basically what's the impact of this book for you? I mean, how or if it has changed you, or what you might feel like it's calling you to at this time. So just a few of well, basically what I was trying to do in the book, I was just talking earlier about the crisis that humanity is in, and the need for a new story or a new vision. And I talked at the beginning of the book about the different that often in that kind of a situation, people seek the restitution narrative, which is how to make things the way they were, or how to make things not have to change. Or if that fails, then maybe the chaos narrative, that everything is just falling apart and there's nothing to be done about it. And the proposal, this was of an author named Arthur Frank, is that instead we should be seeking a quest narrative, which is what's a story that can help us live who we are more fully through whatever it is that is happening, through the chaos, you could say. Or in the words of the chapter, the RSCJ chapter of 2016, how do we become more human? How do we become more who we are intended to be as human beings? So I am, in the book, I am um, claiming the tradition that's called the new animism, and that is the instead of the modern point of view and the modern Western point of view that there's um, basically there's human consciousness and that then there's everything else which is not conscious and not um, doesn't have the same value, or we do give the animals, some level of consciousness, but completely distinct from our own. Um, Whereas the new animism puts us, or not just puts us, but looks at the world from the point of view that everything is in relationship and everything is communicating and everything has something that it can offer us and teach us, and we through the mutual relationships of mutual respect um, can be participants in this living world, this world of living beings. Um, Also, in addition to animism, I'm claiming what's called a relational ontology. Now, I know that's one of those philosophical terms that you can sort of stumble over, but basically, you can get into a lot of depth on it that I'm not going to get into. But the basic idea is that rather than focusing on individual objects, look at their relationships, look at them as emerging in some sense in this evolving web of relationships. So when you see the squirrel running across your yard, well, you say, okay, that's a squirrel. So that's, you're looking at just that particular thing, you could say. But instead, look at it in terms of all of its relationships. Its relationships to the trees, to the ground, to the water, to the other squirrels, to the other animals, to the birds, to the um, to everything. And then when you get into a relational ontology, you realize those relationships ultimately extend out. They just keep extending out, and so that everything is in relationship to everything um, on some level. And of course, all of this is grows out of integrating science into our theology and our spirituality, and um, so trying to learn from what many sciences, physics and um, biology and microbiology and so on, um, are discovering, which have really changed so much our perspective on how the world works and what the world is. Um, and out of those themes and the animism and the relational ontology sort of building up to this concept of deep incarnation. And that deep incarnation is that Jesus as human is has to be insofar as you say the Word was made flesh, so the Word would entered into this world of relational ontology, this world of living relationships, and that therefore the incarnation um, implicates everything that Jesus can present himself, or as I use the word, he can person um, through anything in creation. Uh, so and that's that theology of the incarnation draws on older theology. I mean, as many of you probably know, there's the theories of the incarnation that it only happened because we sinned. That if we hadn't sinned, there wouldn't have been any need for the incarnation. And then the other theology of the incarnation, other main theology of the incarnation, that God always God's nature in some sense is to come forth to be manifested in love, and so that it's the intention from the beginning of creation. And this, of course, what I'm talking about fits with that second type of theology of the incarnation. So it isn't, and that debate goes way back. So it isn't entirely new. But what's new about it is being able to integrate it with some of the scientific insights into the vastness of the cosmos and the way all creatures literally are interconnected with one another. And then, so deep incarnation, and then, from that, we need to start talking about deep resurrection, which is really would be the same kind of idea as Doug Christie's practicing paradise, that if the incarnation implicates everything, then so does the resurrection. That everything, in some sense, participates in the resurrection, and that the concept of practicing paradise, or awakening to the life of God, the glory of God in all things, is our opening up to that reality. Okay, so that was pretty fast. Anyway, so that was my overview, and I'm going to the transition into the so before the small groups, we're going to have a video which is of the Algonquin water song, and it's a beautiful video. And I think in some way it expresses and articulates what I am talking about, and also includes that kind of ritual element that I talked about in the book, about that we need to be able to have rituals and practices that enable us to enter into this and participate in this. So it's the water song, and the words are not in English. The words of the song are not in English, but the meaning of the words, basic meaning, is the water is the lifeblood of Mother Earth. The water is the lifeblood of our bodies.
Granddaughter, the water can hear you. The water has memory.
Nibi,
Nibi,
Wabo,
Wabo,
Endayan,
Endayan.
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misli, Nibi, Wabo, Heya, 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 Hey, Heya, 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 Oh.
Water is the life's blood of our mother, the earth. Water is the lifeblood of our own body.
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misli, Nibi, Wabo, Heya, 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 Hey, Heya, 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 Ho.
To continue to pass on the knowledge that needs to be given unto the other generations. You are the keeper of the water.
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misli, Nibi, Wabo, Heya, 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 Hey, Heya, 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 Ho.
change in this life condition that we're in, that great-grandchildren will stand up to this truth of what life is about, and to live it in such an honorable way, the way ancestors came to this earth.
Libi wabo endayan aki miskwi libi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
Each day when the sun rises, no matter how bad the day before might have been, there's a new chance for your hopes and dreams. And I say, Chimigwech, thank you for singing the water song.
Nibi wabo endayan aki miskwi nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
So that's to lead into the small groups, which Molly will now set up.
Just to say how beautiful and touching that grandmother work is. And Tony and I have been to protests where we are led by Indigenous women singing that song at the edge of the bay here. And it's a deeply beautiful ritual and prayerful. So,
Comments in my group brought out an image that they said I should share with everybody. And because the question that came up was, who's in charge? Are we humans in charge of our destiny, or I suppose the alternative would be, is God in charge of our destiny? Which, of course, ultimately we have to say God. But on the other hand, we no longer have the image of God as the intervening God, or the puppet master God, or the king God, who is literally in charge and can fix things and can just make things happen. We don't have that image anymore. And, or at least I doubt that. Maybe some people do, but anyway, so the image that I have at this point, and the image that I've come to for Jesus, is the mother tree. And this is from a book called The Mother Tree, which is by Suzanne Simard, who is a forest scientist. And she's done a lot of the research on how trees nurture one another through their roots, and through the mycelial, so collaboration with the mycelial networks, the fungal networks under the ground. And that if there's a really big tree in the forest, an old tree, it especially takes care of all the little trees, the seedlings around it. It sends nutrients to the seedlings around it. So that's why it's called a mother tree. And so that's become an image for me of how Jesus, or of how God works. That it's nurturing, taking care, seeking the flourishing, but in some sense, as if it were underground in a hidden way that is not something that is that obvious in a lot of cases. So that's just an image that came up. That and I think Ray may have just put it in the chat. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I put a link to the book.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, to the actual author, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So so now, once again, this is a time for some sharing, because I would be interested to hear what were some of the things that came up in your groups. Okay, Dave?
Hi, Mary. I just had a question that came up from what you just said. You mentioned about, we no longer see God as the fireman who comes out and helps us extinguish fires and so forth. And of course, I do agree with how our image has matured. Do you have a place in your own spirituality or theology for miracles? Because those are instances in which the laws of nature are momentarily abrogated in favor of something wondrous happening. And that certainly happens at times at Lourdes and in other healing places in nature. And I was wondering if you still see it that way, or am I being too old-fashioned?
Well, the more we learn, the more science learns, the more science knows what it doesn't know. They may not tell you that, but that's in fact the reality is that the deeper you get into any subject, the more you know you don't know. And so I guess that I would say miracles, well, they abrogate the laws that we have that we know about, or the usual patterns. I mean, because science is a lot about discovering what's the usual pattern of things, but there's always exceptions. I mean, it's like, this is why it's so maddening for us with medicine, because we think the doctors know everything and know how to fix things. Well, they don't, because it doesn't always happen that way. Every instance is unique, and every case is unique. So so yeah, I mean, I think we call them miracles when we can't explain them, and there may be, or there probably are, forces, or that's not quite the right word, but like the healing, where is that coming from? Well, there's something in this universe that we don't understand, and which we call God, but there may be also parts of creation that are working through that we don't understand yet. And there are people, like the quantum physics, which I am not even going to pretend to try to explain, but that some of the people who do try to write about that and say that it actually sort of leaves openings for things happening that are very different from what we usually think of. And we can't overinterpret that, as if these are things are going to be happening all over the place, but that it kind of leaves those possibilities open in a way that has previously not been thought to. The more Newtonian science was much more like, well, there's a law, and that's a law, and that's always a law. It's just like that. It's this is the pattern. And the quantum world is very different from that. That's the best I can say at this point.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful.
So yeah, I'd like to hear, like I said, some of what came up in your groups. So this is an opportunity to share, or just to, whatever you'd like to do.
No, I would like to invite Joan Terry to speak, because she's
Eric, I want to say that the book is very thick and rich with so many thoughts and references to theology, and I learned so much from it. And especially the last two chapters I spent a bit of time on today, and just talking about the refuge of the pierced heart, and the references you make to how the founding fathers knew that slavery was bad, but they didn't want to inconvenience themselves and give things up. And now here we are in present day, and we know that the world is being exploited and we're polluting it, and we're still not doing enough we acknowledge it, but we're not doing enough because it's inconvenient. And it's made me think of my call to action, like, what can I do to open up I'm just one person, but I think if each of us recognize that we need to do something about this and try to heal the earth.
Thank you. Yeah. And the Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth. But we face it I face it every day. It's very, and I don't always inconvenience myself either. To truly live as we ought in terms of the resources of the earth would be very, very inconvenient. But I guess it's can we endure at least some inconvenience? Maybe that's the question. Can we make some choices that are not the most convenient ones, and do that with intention, and do it, and maybe even, we can't be too preachy in the sense of like insisting on everybody else doing the same things, but sometimes we can kind of witness, yeah, this is why I'm doing this, and that can make a difference in terms of other people.
Anyone else? I was in a group with Mariana Toronto and Joan Terry, which turns out that Joan and I were students of Mariana Toronto in our lives. And so I don't necessarily want to put the finger on you, because I now see Tony Nash has her hand up to ask a question. Tony, do you want to go ahead? And if we have a time, then I'll put my finger back on Joan and Mariana. Do you want to ask your question, Tony? You have to unmute yourself, dear. Thanks.
Thank you. I just wanted to support the last person who spoke about responding to the larger picture. I really appreciated, Mary, what you said about the reparation we can do and the restoration projects. But I also am called somehow about our complicity in the larger destruction, the larger exploitation. How do we unhook ourselves from that? Yes, it will very much call for us to inconvenience ourselves. I don't know how, for example, to inconvenience myself away from using fossil fuels. I mean, I don't know how to get around without a car. And that would be very inconvenient to figure out how to, but just maybe if you have any additional perspective on the conversion in ourselves that is called for. I think the one thing that is continuing to call me from what you said is to recognize my interbeing, the interconnection, the effect my actions have on other beings, and to not let myself off the hook, just talking about me and my friends and how we're doing, but keep reminding myself the effect that my lifestyle has on other beings and other people, and to let that be a continual tug on my heart. I guess that's what I'm feeling a call to. Do you have any other insights on that?
Well, one insight is that, well, to be alive, there is no way to live without having both having some destructive impact. I mean, that is, we are, because we are interconnected and because we are absolutely dependent upon receiving from the rest of the world, our lives will have some, and I'm putting destructive in quotes, but I mean, like, we have to eat, and that's killing. I mean, so in one way, need to be more humble about thinking that the idea that we could live this perfect lifestyle. And on the other hand, how can we live within that reality in the most respectful and mutualistic way that we can? And that's where I think in some, we can learn something from indigenous peoples. Now, I don't want to romanticize indigenous peoples too much, but that because they lived so closely in that interconnectedness, they learned ways of being in relationship in a more respectful way. I think that's at least the way the traditions are conveyed to us, and of having a kind of humility about the human. I mean, the one of the phrases that is often repeated is that humans are the last born of creation. And that we need to accept that our place as the last born. And we haven't accepted that. Instead, we've claimed the place as the not only firstborn, but some other type of creature. So I don't, it's something I know is something I and we will struggle with all our lives. It is, and how do we do that in the midst of a culture that doesn't support it whatsoever?
Yeah.
And we all, well, yeah, I mean, that's enough.
Thank you.
Okay, Joan, I think we're calling you.
There we go.
Mary, I want to thank you. The book gave me sort of another way of looking at the world and the creation of the planet and our part in it. It really gave me some optimism in some ways, without just thinking of either we're here or everything is going to go to destruction, to an destructive pattern. And basically, where you mentioned that the planet itself is billions of years old. We are hundreds of thousands of years old in being created and evolving. So where are we with all this? We don't have the answers. We know so little. There's so little written about what we do know. 2,000 years is a drop in the bucket as far as written information on what we read about the history of the earth. And then at the last chapters, what really struck me about this that made me feel, again, a sense of optimism, when you're talking about Jesus on the cross and giving forth the living water, but not a broken heart, but an open heart that creates things and helps things to mend in brokenness. Because we're all broken. And the earth is in a poor state of affairs. But that phrase said to me, God knows this. He created this planet, and who knows, and the whole universe. We're not AI, and we're not the answer to things. And the other thing that caused me some optimism in looking at the earth this way, I was saying to the others that I've been taking walks with other neighbors for quite a long time. But now when I go out on a walk in the morning, I retired last year, and I've been looking at nature and the trees and everything like, wow, this is part of paradise. This is so beautiful. I've been looking at this for several years. Why didn't I see it? Why haven't I seen it? And I ask myself questions like, how do these huge Sequoia sempervirens stand straight up? Why are all the flowers reaching up towards heaven, as it were, as into the sky, looking up? And I just haven't seen nature that way before. And then the only other thing I want to say about what we can do, we just attended a really, really good seminar one evening at church it was called The Gospel of Water. And we came away with some really small things to do about, like the other individual saying, what can we do? This might make people laugh, but I don't use the dishwasher all the time. I wash the dishes by hand and use as little as water as I can. When I take the pet water bowls and change them in the morning and evening, I water the plants. with the pet water. And I'm trying to make the showers as short as possible. So I just think we can't do, but we could do something. We could do something. So you gave me a sense of optimism and also a look at the earth and our part in creation in a very different way. And I feel more optimistic being in God's hands in this.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And I just want to say, what opens my heart is just being able to use the word creator. Creator. It's so broad and rich and beautiful. And that I am a part of creation and I am of creation as an identity. And I don't know. I couldn't help but say that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mary.
And thank you. You all are the faithful remnant who stuck it out to the end, or at least came to the last one, whether you were here for all. So, but I guess it's time now for our final prayer. Is that right?
Oh, it is, Mary. We don't want to go, but we have to.
And this final prayer, she's going to put it up on she's going to share screen. And I think it'd be nice if we said it together, although probably it's better if you're muted because otherwise it is a total cacophony. And then afterwards you can unmute and say something if you want to. So I will read it, but and I suggest that you also say it out loud. The giveaway prayer. We give away our thanks to the earth, which gives us our home. We give away our thanks to the rivers and lakes, which give away their water. We give away our thanks to the wind, which brings rain to water the plants. We give away our thanks to the sun, who gives away warmth and light. All beings on earth, the trees, the animals, the wind, and the rivers give away to one another, so all is in balance. We give away our promise to begin to learn how to stay in balance with all the earth. Amen. And now, if you want to, you can unmute and say whatever you want before we close.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary.
So much, Mary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
New level of
Great.
awareness. Yeah. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
And thank you,
Thank-
Molly, for spearheading this.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes, thank you, Molly, also.
Yeah.
You're so very welcome.
Thank you, Mary.
It's a privilege.
Thank
Mary,
you,
Mary,
Mary.
a lot of
Thank
people,
you.
Okay.
a lot of
Bye.
people are reading your
Thank
book.
you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, there will be more. There will be more because this is transformative. This is a paradigm shift. I feel that's my way I call
Follow
it.
your
Yes,
next
it is.
book too, Mary. Whatever that may be.
Okay.
Say it
Thank
again,
you
Dave.
so
I didn't
much.
hear it. Yeah.
I said, whatever Mary's next book is, we want to read that one also.
Oh, now she's been having some suggestions for books. Next books.
Authors don't like suggestions of what they should write.
But maybe when you're a nun, it's a little different,
It
Dave.
has to be what she feels a calling to.
That's right.
Well, I'm working on some other books, but although they aren't, well, anyway, you'll see when they come. Okay.
Thank
Goodbye.
you so much. Thank you.
Until
thank
next
you.
time, whatever that may be. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for your participation in your offering and your giving and receiving.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I'll end it. Thanks.